Today I'm going to be taking you through the best T4 abilities for the Inhumans, and to celebrate I have mastered my Black Bolt impression, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is. What is up, everyone? It is Chewbacca84 here from the Alternate Reality Network, and today we are going through the T4 abilities of the Inhumans. Now, this team is insane. They are probably the best singular offensive team in almost every single game mode. I will say that only 2 of them are useful for raid, but my god, are they useful for raid? That being Black Bolt and Yo-Yo. So we're going to go through what we think the T4s are, the best recommendations for your buck, and then I'm going to go through each character individually to basically go a little bit more in depth and talk about if red stars can actually change what we would recommend. Because of course, some characters, if they have higher damage, if they have higher resistance or focus, sometimes that might create a T4 that normally we wouldn't recommend. So let's do this. Let's start off with the poor cousin of the bunch, poor Karnak. He's such a cool character in the comics, but in the game he kind of feels a little bit lackluster when he is amongst a just raft of superstars. So with his basic, all you're really getting from the T4 is increasing his base damage and another 10% crit, taking that up to 25% and 280 respectively. The only time I would consider this ability would be if I had a full 7 red star, because obviously a 25% crit chance would be amazing for a basic like this, especially when Yo-Yo may be calling him in for some extra attacks as well. It's just not enough of a benefit for me to justify, considering how many other amazing ones there are in this squad. Then we come to his special. Now, I really want to like this in the sense that it does change the speed bar by significantly more, and we know in this game, speed normally means win. If you've got speed up, they've got speed down, great. If you can then, on top of that, be able to remove turn meter, it just sounds wonderful. It sounds incredible. The problem is the cooldown. All right, it is such a massive, massive, massive cooldown that it's very hard to justify putting anything into this, because you're not going to use him in any of the long-term formats of the game, that being Raid and Dark Dimension, and that means you're only going to get it off once in an arena or a blitz. So it's kind of useless for the most part outside of a war. I think in war mode, obviously, it's something that can give you a huge benefit when you're trying to take out those pesky Asgardians if you've survived that opening round. So this is kind of a nice to have, but it wouldn't be one that I'd go out of my way to do just because of that cooldown. It wouldn't be in my top 5. The same thing is kind of true for this. I mean, 50,000 extra focus as a base is very nice to be able to remove this anyway, but another 50,000, in most cases, it's going to be quite redundant. All right, it's not really going to matter for most characters, and for the ones that does, there are so few characters in this game that have high enough resistance that it matters if you don't take them out immediately. And the reality is you can kind of tear a team apart with the Inhumans without really having to debuff a tank, even though this is very reliable even without the T4. If it had a lower cooldown, maybe, but being an energy of 8 ability, it's just ridiculously long and not one that I'm going to go out of my way to do. Now, his basic is very debatable. I mean, it's very, very usable in the short form of the game. I mean, if you're getting T4s raining like it's going out of fashion and you did really well with red stars in this team, maybe I would do it. Maybe, but the only thing that you're really getting out of this that you want, extra focus is nice, but it's all about this defense down, all right? So there are so many buff clearers on this team. Quake Special, Karnak's ult, you have the basic calling in of Black Bolt's basic, Black Bolt's actual basic. There's so much that you can do to strip the buffs on the enemy team. It means that this guy is going to be able to have defense down almost always. So It does depend on him getting his turn. He's not the slowest of characters. That helps. The fact that your team's going to have so many more turns than theirs because of the amount of slows that are getting around from the Inhumans as well means that this is very usable. Not in the top 5, but if you are using these together all the time, that defense down will definitely come in handy, especially given the amount of AoE that is in this team. So it's a nice to have ability, but definitely not in the top 5. Miss Marvel, we're kind of pretending that she doesn't exist for the sake of this particular review, mainly because the abilities that she brings to the party have been covered to death in previous videos. Plus, I just don't think she fits the model of what this team is about. Although, having energy going out from Miss Marvel and from Yo-Yo, there might be something to that. If I had a very high red-starred Miss Marvel, maybe I'd drop that Karnak. Maybe there's something to be said there. All right, now let's go into the oldie but the goldie, and that of course is Quake. We know her abilities very well. Her special on the basic, her slow on the basic is wonderful, but only getting 25% extra damage isn't really worth it, even with massive red stars. The same is kind of true for this as well. I mean, being able to get an extra 20 to 25% damage, it's just not worth it. It is on a low cooldown, which is great, but it's really just not worth it for going through onto those characters. Now, her ultimate, another 50% damage, I would say most of the time I wouldn't really think about it, but if you did have 7 red stars on a Quake's ult, yeah, I would probably add this to the mix for your Inhumans team, especially if you got that defense down coming out of Karnak, because obviously having 50% more damage then becomes a lot more than that with that defense down. So that's not too bad. The passive though, 5% extra focus. If there was a worst candidate for T4s, folks, this is it. Don't do it. So in other words, there's none on Quake that I really go out of my way to recommend at this point. All right, coming into Crystal now, and we have her basic, which is actually not too bad, mainly because of the slow for 2 turns. So every time she does her basic attack, when everything else is off cooldown, she slows not for 1, but for 2 turns. So that does make this one that is very nice to have, because it allows you to get control of the board, and that allows you to start picking the enemy team apart. It's more of a controller ability than a blaster, but it's still not bad at all. And given her other abilities can have quite high cooldowns, it's definitely worthwhile having that as a backup. Now this one here, being able to do piercing damage to everyone and repeating it for 3 times, I don't even know if at high red stars I would do this. I think it's very, very minimal as an increase. Yes, piercing is great because it doesn't factor in armor, but at the end of the day, it's only really a 15% increase in damage. It is nothing to write home about, folks. Now this isn't bad. If I had high red stars on Crystal, even if it was 5 or above, I must say that I probably would think about this. It is a very long cooldown. I don't get it until turn 2, turn 3, depending on energy feed and who's getting slows and who's getting speed ups. But being able to stun all those summons is nice, but this damage that you get from the bottom, another 100% to all slowed enemies, which in this team there's going to be a lot, is a significant increase to damage. Below 4 red stars, I think I'd probably leave this one alone. I don't think it's really one to jump out of your skin about. Let's go into my 2 favorite characters here from the Inhumans, and that is of course Yo-Yo, and then there is Black Bolt, which we're going to do last. So Yo-Yo is just awesome. Now I only really see one of hers as 100% necessary and one of hers as very nice to have, more so to kind of offset if you get low red stars on her. Now her basic, as far as I'm concerned, it's an essential. You want to have it because of how fast that she is. You want to have her calling in this counter attack, this assist attack every time she hits her basic. As I showed in my last video showcasing my top my top raid team for January, being able to use her basic so much in raids means you can just keep the enemy team without buffs almost the entire time when she is paired with only Black Bolt as an Inhuman. That combination is insane. Everything else, being able to call in any of her Inhuman colleagues is still good, but her and Black Bolt with that basic are insane. Her special's kind of useless. I mean, she has very low damage because she is a protector. Even if I had 7 red stars, you'd be finding me pretty hard pressed to justify all of that for an extra 20% on these particular attacks. The same is true for her ultimate. Given her speed, maybe I'd think about it if I had 7 reds, but anything outside of 7 reds, this just isn't worth it, folks. Now, her passive is very debatable. I think if you have very, very low red stars in this character and you want to make sure that whenever she uses her passive to apply that offense down to the enemy team, you want it to stick, right? Now, I found at 3 red stars, even in Ultima 7, this seems to stick more often than it doesn't. In fact, sometimes even when you don't want it to, like on Deadpool, you kind of want him to resist it because otherwise it's a guaranteed free heal for him every time he attacks, even if he didn't have debuffs before he started moving. So I like this ability just fine. I don't think you need the extra, and you're only really getting the full focus benefit anyway if you're using it in the Inhuman squad. And because of that, it's a nice to have, but really, really not one that you have to go into. Her basic is just a guarantee. You need to do it. Now, it's not going to be any surprise. Everyone knows how much I love this guy. He's a plug-and-play character. You can drop him into any team. That team gets spectacularly better. If he's not the best character in the game right now, he's certainly in the top 3. I think it's him, Hela, and Doctor Strange duking it out as of February 2020 for the best 3 characters in Marvel Strike Force. Now, he's basic. You got to do it. You have to do it. I mean, being able to clear 2 positive effects every time he hits. With Yo-Yo coming into the squad, that means he gets to do this twice every round. If you pair only those 2 together, that means 4 debuffs every single rotation of that squad. It is so good, you can't not do it. And another 50% damage on a basic attack for someone who has the highest base attack stats in the game is not even a discussion. It's a must. He's special here, of course, where he's doing a single target nuke of epic proportions. I think anything above a 3 red star justifies this, but to be honest, pretty much everything justifies this. I would rush out. It'd probably also be the last one that I would do in this team, though. I would certainly go for his passive first, then his basic, then his ult, and then that special. And that ult is just nuts. Being able to do 500% damage to the entire enemy team is bananas, all right? When he has offense up and the enemy has defense down in raids, this thing is so perfect to watch in action. Everything just falls down. And just in case they didn't fall down, that is what this passive is for. This passive is, man, it's up there as one of the best passives in the game as far as I'm concerned. I can't wait to see how this performs when I get him to 6 red stars later on this week with that free currency they've given us. 50% extra damage is what you get on the T4. Another 100% to villain tech enemies when they drop below 25%. And another 20% max health for him. And most of the time that's Yo-Yo, but the rest of the Inhumans as well. Good God, he is an amazing character. All right, I understand he's not farmable by everyone. I really don't think that the Inhumans team works anywhere near its full potential without him. But the reality is he is the most plug-and-play AoE single target DPS in this game. All right, he has the ability to get past taunts. He has the ability to remove buffs, and then just a stupendous amount of damage on top of all of that. Words cannot fulfill how much I'm in love with this guy right now. And the fact that his passive, his utility items are so unused by the rest of the people for things like Dark Dimension, taking him into things like Dark Dimension 2 or even Dark Dimension 3 is a no-brainer because no one else that's half decent is really using that quantum energy. So this team is insanely good. You want to go max out on every single one of the Inhuman characters T4s for Black Bolt. You want to do the basic for Yo-Yo. They're the only ones that you need. All right, if you have those in there, this team is going to crush. Having a couple on Crystal is nice. Having 1 or 2 maybe on Karnak is okay. But Quake is so good, she doesn't really need anyone else with her. And Miss Marvel as well, she doesn't really need T4s, even if you were dropping her in for a more defensive version along with Karnak there. So what do you think, folks? Do you think that we got the order right? Are you looking forward to unlocking Black Bolt if you don't already have him? Make sure you leave those in the comments below. If you want to watch more videos from us, make sure you stay tuned to this channel and hit the subscribe and the notifications bell so that you can see when we drop these videos. Head on over to alternatereality.com because, of course, we have all of our infographics, including the one that we have recommending the T4s for this ability. Hey, a lot of people in this day and age, it's a too long, didn't read. This guide that Piker puts out every time we do a T4 recommendation for a new team like this, you can find that over on the website without fail every time. If you do copy and paste that and you're sharing it amongst your Discord or on Facebook, Please give credit to the man that did it. His name is Piker. He is part of Alternate Reality, and he does sensational work. Until next time, folks, we really appreciate you watching this video. And for now, cheers.